So I'll take you through this last one, which is a little bit more complex. If we take a look at this in perspective view, we see that there are 4 identical benches. They are set around a circle, and so maybe they're part of a meeting space that has an important monument in the middle. Maybe they go around something like a fountain or a water feature. But I would like you to create a circular bench with wood top using array polar, divide, and extrude. Let's just take a look at this bench a little bit more in detail. So we have this wood topper, these wood slats that are arrayed with equal distances between the slats all the way around this part of a quadrant of a circle. It's not the full quadrant of a circle, it's a partial quadrant. Now, this is usually something that you do when you have a detail in mind. So I would have been working off of a drawing that probably outlined different wood pieces. And as you get more knowledgeable in the field, you'll understand what standard dimensions are for certain things. A bench is usually between 45 and 50 centimeters high. That's a good sitting height. Standard piece of lumber, is a 2x4, but we also have 1x4s or 1x2s and other dimensions. This one, I think, is a little bit wider. It looks like it might be a 6-inch timber that is tapered at the bottom to create this curve. So I'm just going to measure this edge down here. This is 14 centimeters, and let's see how big this is. 17 centimeters. Okay, so we have a piece of lumber that is dimensionally tapered from 17 centimeters to 14. How would you go about creating this? I'm just going to demonstrate the technique that I used to create this bench. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hide all of these benches, and just select them, use my quick menu by pressing down on my centermost button and hide those away. Then I'm going to go into my top view and work in plan. So I have these reference lines, and I can assume that these openings are the same all the way around the circle. So what I'm going to do is select this inner curve and use split, and use these as my cutting objects to split that circle into pieces. So now I have an inner piece here, and now I'm going to use divide to divide this into segments. So you can choose a length of segment, or you can choose a number of segments. And we know our length of the segment was 14 centimeters, but I'm just going to unhide that and see what the total is with this gap as well. So with the gap, it's 0.15 meters. So I can do a few things. I can divide this using the divide command into lengths that are 0.15. And you see it puts a point along this entire curve to denote where 1.15 is. Or I can take this curve and I can measure it. And it says the curve length is 8.42. Let's round it up to 8.43. And I can do some math calculations. So 8.43 divided by 0.15 equals 56.2. So I could also choose to divide this into 56 segments. Oops. Like that. Either way, I'm going to end up with divisions along this that I can then use to array information across this entire part of the circle. So the next thing we want to do is draw a reference object, and we already know that our reference object is meant to be 14 centimeters by 17, and it tapers. So let's first rotate this so that it matches up with this point here. I'm going to use copy and do an in place, and then I'm going to use rotate to rotate this line from here to this point here. And I just want to make sure my points are checked off so that I can match up there. We also know that this distance is 15 centimeters. So this is getting into really precision modeling here. So we need to offset this in this direction, or rotate it by 0.01 actually, to get to 14 centimeters. So one thing I could do is just take this point and copy it and bring it over in this direction and go 0.01, and there I'll have a pretty accurately measured point. It's not right on the line because the line is curved, but if I could bring it up to the line here. So I can then rotate this again. From this point. And I'm going to just turn off some of my other, there we go, to this point. Now if I measure this, I have 0.14. So now we have our piece of lumber almost. So what I'm going to do is just use split to create the profiles that I need. So I'll just select all the lines and go split, and I'm going to press enter again to use those as the splitting objects. And I'm going to do the same with these. And with this. So now I have the shape of my board, and I'm going to join this together in a closed curve. Now I'm going to look at this in perspective view, and I'm going to extrude this as a solid so that I have my piece of timber. And dimensional timber is about 2.5 centimeters high, so I could do 0.025 like that. That would be 2.5 centimeters, so 1 inch. And next I'm going to use the array polar command to array this piece of lumber all the way down to the end of this line. So let's select this and type in array and then go to polar down here. It asks for the center of the polar array, which is the center of the circle. The number of items, we know that we made our divisions, so we should have 56. And the angle, fill, or first reference point. So I'm going to start the angle here, and I'm going to end it here. And now if we look, we have all of the wood elements arrayed all across this entire curve. We have an extra board here, and that's because it arrayed it to the final point there. So I'm just going to enter to accept and just delete the last board that we don't need. And now we have the wood topper for our bench arrayed perfectly, spaced perfectly all the way across this part of the site. So now I would probably just select all of those elements and points that we don't need. So I'm just going to delete all of those, and then I'll select all of the extrusions and get rid of any lines that we have. I think there's just one extrusion, which was this one, or one line, which was this one here. And now I'm going to group this. So now I have a quadrant, but I want to build the supports underneath, and that's pretty easy. So I'm going to elevate this using move and then vertical, and move this to 0.45. So it's, the top of it is 45 centimeters off the ground. And I'm just going to use this same basic shape as a surface. So I want it to be thinner because it's probably going to be a metal support. So I'm going to explode this, and then I'm going to offset this. I'm going to offset it by 0.15. no, 0.02, which is 2 centimeters. And then I'm going to split those curves and join these together to create a closed curve. And now I can extrude this. I'm going to extrude it up to the base of my bench. And I can rotate this using the same basic tools that I used before to create a few different supports. Now, you would normally have, a piece of metal or some rails that go along the base of this bench, but for this particular project, all I cared about was the way that it looked in perspective. I didn't really need to get that detailed with the construction. So I wasn't gonna bother drawing in things that weren't going to be seen in my views. So the base is really all that I need. I'm gonna use array polar again. The center is here. The number of items is, let's say, maybe 4. The first reference point is this one, and the last reference point is somewhere down here. If I had left those points on, I could match up to one of the points, but I'm just going to select something there. And now you see we have 4 supports underneath our bench, just like that. So I'm going to select those supports and this topper, and I'm going to group them together. And I'm going to use array polar again to array them around the site. All right, so now I want to rotate this bench all the way around so that we have 4 benches in all 4 quadrants of this circle. So I'm going to use array polar again, and the center is here. The number of items I want is 4, and it says angle to fill or first reference point. So I'm going to select the top of my circle here, and I want this to be equal all the way around the edge of the circle. So basically I'm going to set it to 270 degrees. Now you would think you would do 360, but that would actually mean that one of these is overlapping with itself, so that you would end up with 3 benches across the site. So actually you need to go to about 3/4 of the way around the circle, which is 270. And now you can see, if I enter to accept, that all of the benches have been properly rotated, and within 10 minutes I have a pretty good detail bench that I can use in my drawings. So I hope that this introduction to surface modeling has been really helpful for you and introduced you to some new tools and made you feel a little bit more confident in tackling some detail modeling in your work. If you are running into issues with your design work going forward, definitely just bring that up in class or reach out. I'm happy to demonstrate any methods that might be useful to you as you're working.